Today, we delve into the psychology of Mephisto, explore the story of Diablo 2, a bit of 3, and of course, the ending of Diablo 4. If you don't want spoilers to the ending of the newest game, I will give you a heads up when we get there. But if you're not familiar with Diablo and the universe, or you just need a recap, we're going to explore what we know about Mephisto so far.
As you can see, the populace has been brutally decimated by the forces of Mephisto. The canals run red with blood, and demons roam the land. The wretched jungle hell has already reclaimed much of Karast.
In the third act of Diablo 2, you journey to the jungles of Karast. The city here, once thriving, has fallen to chaos and despair, its inhabitants corrupted by hatred. This is due to what lies below the ground. Mephisto, one of the three prime evils, brother to Baal and Diablo himself. But how did something so powerful end up imprisoned beneath the earth? Well, before the events of Diablo 2, Tyrael, a powerful archangel, bestowed humanity with a tool to help stop the evil: soul stones, shards capable of capturing and housing the essence of the prime evils. Mephisto was the first of the brothers to be caught and bound within his soul stone. Now, this soul stone would need to be kept safe, somewhere secure where no one could stumble across it. So the Horodrim, the name of the brotherhood responsible for capturing the prime evils, built a construct called the Guardian Tower. And then, to be extra sure, they dug deep down 3 levels below ground and placed the soul stone there. Now, the Horodrim needed someone to stand guard over the tower, so they bestowed this duty to a group called the Zakarum, a religious order who worshipped the light. And they guarded it for years and years. The Zakarum built a holy city here. The Guardian Tower became the Temple of Light, and so the city of Travincal was born, a religious centre for the Zakarum faith. But something very unholy had been transpiring underground over these hundreds of years. You see, soul stones aren't perfect. In this universe, if a demon is killed, it won't stay dead forever. Over time, it will be reformed in the fires of hell. And the same goes for the prime evils. Death is not the end. So as a solution, binding them in a soul stone prevents them from eventually coming back to life, as their essence is trapped in stasis. However, their power cannot simply be contained within the stone forever. It's able to leak out and influence anyone who happens to be close to the stone. And this is what happened to the Zakarum. Mephisto was so pervasive that even after he had been defeated and entombed in a soul stone, his demonic essence oozed upwards into Travincal and corrupted the Zakarum priests. Mephisto is thought to be one of the smartest and most cunning of the 3 prime evils. Having a super intelligent embodiment of hatred underneath your holy city went as well as you can probably expect. One by one, the priests of Zakarum were corrupted by Mephisto, unable to ignore his whispers, and eventually gave in to hatred. All but one, Khalim, a man so incorruptible and so dedicated to the way of the light that he successfully resisted Mephisto's temptations. And what did Mephisto do in response to this? He ordered the Zakarum Council to slaughter Khalim, cut up his body, and scatter his remains all over the lands. That is the type of hate-filled and savage evil we are dealing with, all whilst being trapped within the Soul Stone. So now, with the whole of the Zakarum religion fallen and converted to worshipping Mephisto, he ordered the priests to shatter his Soul Stone that was kept below the tower and release his spirit. But not just to destroy the Soul Stone. Take a fragment of it and drive it into their hands. The largest shard rested in the hand of Sankakur, who would eventually become Mephisto's new host body. In one of the original Diablo 2 cinematics, Mephisto's character model bears some resemblance to a human face and upper body, hinting that this is the remains of Sankakur. However, in the remake Diablo 2 Resurrected, he appears more to be a twisted and demonic skeleton. When we, the protagonist, arrive at the temple, take down Mephisto, and cast his essence into an otherworldly realm called the Abyss, The heroes went on to sunder the crystals in the blistering Hellforge, thereby casting Mephisto's essence into what I speculate to be an otherworldly realm called the Abyss. That should be the end of it, right? Real evil never really dies. So now we arrive at Diablo 4, and there will be spoilers discussed about the whole of the game from this point onwards. So this is the point where I kindly warn you to click off now if you don't want anything about Diablo 4 spoiled for you. Now let's talk about Mephisto. During Diablo 4's beta period, you meet a wolf at the beginning of the game. This wolf speaks, and with a very powerful, distinctive voice at that.
Who are you? An admirer of sorts.
This is more than just some magical talking animal. A lot of discussion commenced about who this wolf may be, and the main piece of evidence was one standout feature: the markings on the exposed skull. Players later uncovered that these same markings appear in one of Diablo's lore books, the Book of Adria. The titular character, Adria, was tasked with making these markings on the souls of both lesser and prime evils. Now you might be thinking, I thought we had already established that Mephisto and the other evils were vanquished in Diablo 2. But apparently, a very small part of a demon's essence actually stays behind in the place where they were defeated. Think of it like a ghost bound to the area where it had died. Only a tiny amount of essence, but just enough to be harnessed by a powerful enough witch. So Adria travelled to where Mephisto's essence lingered in Sanctuary and marked it, which leaves a particular sigil. These marks would allow Adria to recall all of the souls into one big soul stone, the Black Soul Stone, whereby one massive evil Diablo could be unleashed. The spirits are channeled into the vessel. My master consumes them all, becomes them all. Mortal flesh burns away to reveal his greatest form, the prime evil, with cool spells to mark the souls of the evils and the Black Soul Stone to contain them. I can bring this vision to life. Cutting a long story very short, the souls contained within that Soul Stone were eventually released, and the essence of all those evils were returned back into the world, effectively resetting everything back to square one. So with this knowledge, players speculated that because Mephisto's essence had been freed, plus the markings matching the ones from Adria's notes, this must be the Lord of Hatred, taking on the guise of a wolf. Interestingly, when Diablo 4 was in development, it assumed the placeholder name of Project Fenris, Fenris being the famous wolf from Norse mythology. But regardless if you've played Diablo 4 or not, Mephisto is not actually framed antagonistically. The marketing and face of Diablo 4 is Lilith, so she must be the main antagonist, right? But then if we return to my first point, why was the project called Project Fenris? That's because the plot of Diablo 4 does actually revolve around Mephisto more than you may have realised. The game quite literally begins and ends with Mephisto. He has been manipulating the story the entire time. Let me explain how. The game begins with our character traversing a snowy mountain. Darkness falls, and we struggle through the start of a fierce blizzard. Our horse gets spooked by something and runs off, and as we catch up, we sadly find it bleeding out, having been attacked by something, and that is where we see the shadow of a wolf. With no mount any longer, you struggle against the wind and heavy snow until you arrive at a cave. Taking shelter there and falling asleep, we see the Mephisto wolf approaching, and we also hear the same whispers that were present when inspecting our deceased horse. We take temporary shelter in this cave, and when you awake, you decide to find somewhere better, and conveniently, there happens to be a nearby town very close to the cave. And arriving here is the catalyst for the entire events of Diablo 4. You learn about Lilith, you get fed her blood, establishing this bond which allows you to see visions of her, tracking her movements, then teaming up with the Horodrim to try and take her down. This was all Mephisto's doing. If he hadn't taken out our horse, then we would have likely ended up at a completely different location, or froze to death in that blizzard. And he lets you know this when you meet him later.
I saved you in the mountains. You'd lost your horse and crawled into that cave. Would have frozen to death if not for me.
He mentions this so nonchalantly, but this was a situation that he put us in. He did it so that we are now in his debt. He saved us so our guard is lowered. We feel in debt to him. This is guilt-tripping, a tactic commonly used by manipulators. Not to mention that when we met him at this location, we'd actually stumbled into a trap, and it was Mephisto who opened up a portal to offer us an escape. So now we are twice in his debt. Mephisto did this as a strategic, psychological move. If someone has saved your life twice, what possible threat do they pose to you? Our character, very wisely, remains suspicious. We ask why this strange wolf is helping us.
Oh, it's very simple. You want to stop Lilith, and I want you to succeed. But you'll never do that by following the Horadrim.
The proclamation that you share the same opponent, Lilith, is reminiscent of an old saying, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." And this is what Mephisto wants you to think. He tells you that the Horadrim you travel with are flawed, that they will fail. This safe space that he brings you to is in fact a vision of Tristram from the beginning of Diablo 2. He is showing the consequences and the destruction the Horadrim inadvertently caused by building a town, Tristram, practically on top of where they had previously imprisoned Diablo.
The Horadrim of old imprisoned Diablo, the Lord of Terror, beneath the earth. And then they built this town nearby. You can see how that turned out.
The irony of this, now knowing that the same thing had happened to Mephisto when he was previously trapped below Travincal. So by posing that the Horadrim are untrustworthy, Mephisto is demonstrating that he can be trusted. He successfully rescued us twice, shares our goal, and warns us as to the fate of the Horadrim.
A day will come when the Horadrim stumble. Don't be there when they do.
You could argue that at this point, he hasn't done anything malicious to us, but that's because our character at this point still does not know that this is Mephisto. It is in his best interest to build up as much of a good impression as possible so that when we do discover his true identity, the blow is softened. When we go to the shrine of Mephisto, the wolf is there to greet us, revealing that this is indeed the Lord of Hatred, and his effect is already starting to sway our mind. When you arrive, your companion Lorath comments on your change in demeanour.
I can handle it.
See? The power here is already agitating you.
I told you I can handle it.
Despite just inhabiting a wolf's body, Mephisto is still able to slowly manipulate us, but he does this so strategically and gradually. He continues to make himself seem harmless, friendly. After all, he's just a poor, injured wolf.
I know who you are now.
Yes, but that doesn't mean we can't help each other.
Our character, knowing of the Lord of Hatred now, remains on guard, but yet still so susceptible.
You deserve far worse.
All I have done is offer you help, and yet you repay me with hatred. Why not focus that anger on Lilith for the time being?
Here again, we are being influenced by hatred, the effect of simply being around Mephisto. He, however, continues to play the victim. Like he said, all he has done is help us since the start. We rationally cannot be angry at him. And Mephisto, knowing this, takes that hateful energy and tells us to direct it at Lilith. She is the real enemy. Leaving his realm, we return to Lorath and tell him of what we found. We confess that it is actually not the first time we met this wolf, and Lorath demands to know why we didn't tell him sooner.
It's not the first time I've encountered him.
What? When you kept this from me?
We all keep secrets, don't we, Horadrim?
Here we see that our character is now beginning to distrust the Horodrim because of Mephisto's influence. He planted that seed in our mind from earlier, and now because of that, and being affected by the hate-filled air, our character is succumbing more and more to Mephisto's scheme. As the events of the game continue, the Lilith situation grows worse, and the cracks in the surviving Horodrim begin to show. Mephisto returns to remind us of this. He takes amusement in watching this drama unfold, continuing to goad us, and yet it only ignites our passion to defeat Lilith more. And that's also exactly what Mephisto wants, especially as now Lilith is heading for where Mephisto's essence lies, in hell. He is vulnerable, his wolf form is purely an observer. He cannot stop Lilith if she were to absorb his essence for herself. But we can, and he knows this.
There will come a time when we are enemies. But like it or not, right now we need each other to defeat her.
So we reach a dilemma. We are going to stop Lilith to save humanity, but at the same time, we are inadvertently helping a prime evil. And we don't have a choice. That is why Mephisto is so smug. When our character and Neyrel, the young Horodrim, arrive moments away from Mephisto's dwelling place, he demonstrates that he has us exactly where he wants us.
What does he mean?
This fiend helped me escape from Lilith.
Here is the first time that you verbally admit that Mephisto had helped you. His plan has worked. Neyrel, shocked at this, tries to understand why you would accept his help.
You trusted a prime evil?
Trust had no part in it. Your friend saw reason instead.
This part is so good because it's textbook manipulation. Your life was in danger. Mephisto was there with an outstretched hand every time you stumbled, and you took it every time. You willingly chose to walk in and out of those portals. You told yourself you had no choice, and every time that you did, you owed yourself to Mephisto. He never asked for anything in return. He never explicitly told you to trust him. But on paper, your actions showed that you did. And even now, he advocates for you, just like a friend would, arguing back with Neyrel that this wasn't a choice, this was just the rational and right thing to do. It's so subtle and cunning and exactly like Mephisto. He knows that we know that he's the Lord of Hatred, but there would be no benefit in acting like it. Instead, he disarms us by acting calm, rational, and so tempting to trust. And it worked. Here we are about to protect Mephisto from Lilith, and even now, he doesn't ask us for anything.
No proposals. I offer only my aid.
He doesn't ask us to protect him. He knows if we does, we will outright refuse. We will be inadvertently helping him by fighting and destroying Lilith. He opens up a portal to his location, and we willingly walk through. The illusion of choice once again. As we approach the final battle, we discuss with Neyrel how we are going to trap Lilith in the Soul Stone. But as we talk it through, Mephisto is being all too agreeable.
Yes, a wise ploy. And you can leave the stone with me. I will ensure that Lilith never troubles your world again. You return home. I remain in hell. All as it should be.
Neyrel picks up on this.
Something isn't right. Mephisto led you to this moment. We're in his realm. Should we really be doing what he wants?
And then, in a last-minute decision, we pose the question, what about using the Soul Stone on Mephisto instead? Defeat Lilith and trap Mephisto in the Soul Stone to stop him reforming. As Neyrel says, he is the greater of the two evils. Our character, in a surprising decision, leaves that choice up to Neyrel, admitting that we have been influenced too much by Mephisto.
Your lives and those of all humanity depend on what you do next. Choose wisely.
And she chooses to use the Soul Stone on the Lord of Hatred.
Have sealed your fate.
Mephisto, his wolf form still active, opens a portal for Neyrelle to escape, whilst we do final battle with Lilith. Now let's backtrack for a second. One of the last things that Mephisto says to us is
Don't let your hate for me blind you to common sense.
Mephisto knows that he is a powerful, hateful aura, and he's used it to his advantage before. So why now would he say, don't have hatred, as he's the one making us that way? Unless this was all part of his plan as well. Mephisto might be utilizing reverse psychology, getting what he wants by demanding the opposite. In this context, telling us not to use the Soul Stone on him when that is actually his desired outcome. And he knows that this is the optimal time to put this into motion because he heard Neyrelle and us discussing that we shouldn't trust him. So by leaning into the bit that he doesn't want to get captured, makes us even more sure of our decision to do so. So why exactly does Mephisto want to get put in a Soul Stone? Doesn't this undo his progress of reforming in hell? Well, yes and no. Mephisto's location was revealed to us. In the bubble, he's vulnerable. In theory, we might have been able to destroy him in that form. So, as the mastermind that he is, he decided that the best option was to be trapped in the Soul Stone. As we established from Diablo 2, Mephisto is still able to have a powerful influence within the stone. This is not by any means a perfect solution for either party. We don't know exactly what Mephisto's end goal is here, but it must have something to do with getting closer to Sanctuary. Before, he was stuck reforming in hell, but now he is being carried above, one level higher to heaven, which is usually the end goal for most of the demons, to conquer heaven. At the beginning of the game, we learn of Rathma's prophecy, and the two lines of significance here are, "Then came a spear of light, piercing hatred's heart, and he who was bound in chains was set free." Hatred's heart possibly relating to Lilith being defeated, and he might be referring to Mephisto. He who was once trapped is now alive and on the mortal plane. As we watch the end cinematic, we see Neyrelle travelling far away, maybe trying to find somewhere to hide the Soul Stone, or locate someone who can help. She is insistent that she must do it alone, aware of how the Soul Stone can corrupt anyone around it. Mephisto in wolf form watches over Neyrelle, accompanying her in an oddly amicable manner. Once again, they kind of share the same goal. Mephisto's Soul Stone needs to be kept intact so as not to be released back into hell, and at the same time, Mephisto wants to be brought along with Neyrelle on her travels. Another coincidental alliance has formed again, but also, as we have learnt time and time again, nothing good can ever come from the Soul Stones. Thank you everyone so much for watching my second Diablo lore video. I'm still pretty new to the Diablo universe, but if you enjoy, please let me know and I'll continue making more Diablo lore videos. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to my channel members and patrons. Reese's 5, Jawbite, Kyle Coldwell, Hellborn Hero, Rotoyo, Excel Turtle, Bloodfallen 223, Jeremy, Monkaru, Kichu, Jeffricano, Nubist, Chase, Justnick, Kevin H, Taganon Dowell, Tabris, Jonathan Veras, Milo Raglan, Frankie Felix, Dark Souls Weeb, Daunted 232, Lord Horatius, Echo Sandvich, Joachim Westman, Bucky, SDK True, Lua 420H said, Liver 22, Kacharadan Sastra, Country 123, Delanator 90, Meskir, Vinicius Alajo Lego, Trip Kennedy, Frozen Over, Matthew, Oblivion's Muse, Bridget Pettigrew, Goth Reaper, Tim, Issachide, Lord Mud, Lone Wolf, Joey Vision, Omni Rainbow, Motocross Cooper, Foam, Lord Glacier, Garrulus Goldmask, Iron Watcher, Cross Hegan, Crystal Blue Persuasion, Reign of Pain, Andrew Haynes, Akura, Justice for Adam, J-Dub, Eskeith 001, Can I Win Please, Chungo Bob, Fallen Mind, Mr. Alexan, Raglan Strom, Vincent E.M. Thorne, Cheskimo, Nox Camelius, Julie, David Mattison, Chris Ritson, Mug, Lawlover, Marco Rash, Roxy Zeppeli, Levante Truss, Charlotte96, Mr. H, Shamrock219, Dan Dingley, Jack Tesla, Edaz, Dylan Schnabel, Bugboy001, Ushida May Shoin, Arlen Leedy, PhD Cola, Hiragi, Joshua White, Drew Lighthead, Kevin Culkins, Kalmar, Mark Sharon, Rat Sponge, Phyrexian Sleeper Agent, Alex, Raz, Emma, Jack Simpson, Gaping Donut, Jacob Thu, Fancy Pants Pikachu, E.T., Anthony Manzano, Twig, Caleb Sadlowski, Art888, McPlatypus, MedB, J, Mohit Mahanti, Brandon Finley, Syke Seal, Abyss Walker 26, Jordan, Bob Lee, Nick Nugent, Mark Koswich, Rhett Martin, Deary Blossy Luxy, S. Magus, J. Gabrielle Ronkainen, Tom Hallam, Vern, Piet Ixthenathantrix, Ryan Brown, Orlando, Jack Manson, Pepperonioni, Chokai, Sheriff Whiskey, Ruben Espino, and Ali Almari. Thank you everyone so much.